Welcome to the head coach Paul Tortorella show here on IUP TV. Jack Benedict is off. I'm Mark Bertig. Coach, IUP now 7-0, a hard-fought 34-17 victory over Slippery Rock on the road, coming on the heels of a 26-10 victory on your own homecoming over Cal. Did it in front of a raucous crowd, over 10,000 on hand up at the Rock. So you face some adversity early on, you fall behind 10-0. You had to be really happy with how the guys responded.
Well, Mark, we did a good job of just staying with what we do. You know, I kind of expected at the beginning they would have a big push, you know, with a big crowd there, and we just had to get settled into the game. I thought our coaches did a great job, never wavering from what we were doing, and they were really, both offensively and defensively, our coaches I thought were one step ahead of Slippery Rock, really, on both sides of the ball. So once we established our run game, we handled the sudden, shock of the beginning of the game, so to speak. And then to go in at halftime up 17-10 was huge. We totally shifted the momentum.
Paul, you're down 10-0 as we talked about, and you're also pinned deep in your own territory. You have a 2nd down and 11 at your own 1-yard line, and Samir Bullock does what Samir Bullock does, a great individual effort, and 85 yards later, you're deep in their territory. Talk about that run and what a game changer that was for you at that time.
Well, it was huge momentum swing. Samir's a guy that we, say can hit the home run. We have a lot of good backs, but he's one that can really, break the big one. Once he got a crease and got out of the end zone, he had a seam, and they were overplaying it. They were loaded up to stop the run, and sometimes if you get a crease and get through that first level, you can break a big one, and he did that, and that obviously, even though we only kicked a field goal on that drive, changed the momentum of the game.
No question about it. And you look at the schedule overall, you're kind of at the point of the season where the grind of the schedule, if you will, for lack of a better term, and you reach the midway point facing 2 nationally ranked teams in California and Slippery Rock. You passed both of those tests actually for the first time. You beat them both, first time since 2004. How big for this football program?
Well, I think confidence-wise, we have a good belief in what we're doing, players, coaches, staff, the whole program. But, until you do it, there's still a little bit of doubt. We really believe that we would play well in both games. Our confidence now is probably as high as it's been all year. I really like this team. They are very resilient, and they're pretty relentless. So I think we got great team chemistry. Really like the players that we have in regards to being, playing for each other. And, you can play anybody, anywhere, anytime if you have that type of attitude.
609 total yards, including 382 in the ground. Bullock rushes for 168. I thought Justin Evans, a great game,
right.
89 yards. Quarterback Lenny Williams, 23 of 28 completions for 225 yards and 3 touchdowns. On the offensive side, not much to complain about.
Well, we were talking this morning, if you were their defense, what really do you have to hang your hat on? We had over 600 yards. We rushed for 380. Lenny was 23 for 27, and the one thing that Slippery Rock's defense does well is rush the quarterback and sack the quarterback, and they didn't have any sacks either. So we had very little negative plays. We only had the 1 turnover going in. We probably left a couple drives out there where we could have gotten more points. We kicked 2 field goals. I thought the second field goal by Sarka to put us up by 10 was huge. It was a 41-yarder into the wind. It gave us a 2-score lead. I thought that was a big turning point later in the game. But offensively, really, our whole thing is when we're running the ball, we can do whatever we want to do. And football's changed a lot, but if you rush for 380 and your opponent only rushes for 66, you're going to win. And that was the difference in the game.
Paul, I talked about kind of the grind of the season, reaching the midway point, certainly 2 opponents that are going to get your attention. But after a hard-fought, emotional victory over Cal, take us back. Obviously, Slippery Rock's going to get your attention in a hurry, but the recharge that had to take place in a short period of time and how your guys approached that.
Well, we just looked at it as another challenge. I think the way we look at the season, philosophy-wise, helps in regards to no matter who we're playing, we're just worried about the next game. And it just happened to be Slippery Rock, and it just happened to be that they were 6-0, and it just happened to be at their place, obviously in front of a huge crowd. But we really look at who we're, basically we're worrying about IUP more than anything, and it's just the next game and who we're playing, it's really just the next Saturday. And when you think like that and you talk like that as a philosophy in your program, you hope to not have a lot of highs and lows depending on who you're playing, where you're playing, et cetera, et cetera.
What about what these guys have been through, particularly Lenny coming off of injury, advancing into the playoffs again last year, the maturation process that goes with that and wanting to take the next step and take the next step? Does past experience come into play there?
Absolutely. A lot of people talk before the Slippery Rock game about, hostile environment. What are your thoughts on it? Well, my thoughts were our guys have been there and done that. Played down at Shepherd, have played on the road in a lot of big games. Whereas, Slippery Rock was playing 4 freshmen on defense. So I thought the game got a little bit too big for their guys on defense, where it was never going to be like that for us because our guys have been in that scenario before and, played a tough game last year at Cal during the regular season, then went back down there in the playoffs. These guys had been at Shepherd 2 years ago down there. We went to Charleston, played a playoff game. So it wasn't anything that they weren't, prepared for.
To prepare for the future, you might invite the Indiana Fire Department over to practice and squirt some water on your guys. The weather has been unbelievable this season. We've really been blessed.
It's been crazy, really. I mean, it's 75 or hotter, warmer, sunny. The weather's been unbelievable. I mean, it's almost like it's summer weather. We like it because we got a lot of depth. I thought that was a big factor in the second half against Slippery Rock. I felt when we went in at halftime up 17-10, not only have we changed the momentum, I thought now our depth would wear them out in the second half. And, we play a bunch of receivers, a bunch of defensive linemen. We've got a lot of running backs. We try to substitute freely, really at every position. And I thought that really showed in the second half on Saturday.
Walt Pegues getting reacclimated, if you will, evidently feeling better and better, and he'll become a bigger part of the offense, I would assume.
Well, he will be, because, you look at Walt for 3 years here, he's been our #1 guy at receiver. And now to get him back with the 5 or 6 other guys who've been playing great, to plug in a guy that was your #1 guy, it just, that adds even more to what we can do offensively. Walt's a threat, obviously, with the deep pass. He's a threat on the screens. He's a threat on reverse. Anytime he gets the ball in his hands with his speed, he poses a great deal of problems for the defense. So that's just added to basically what we're playing with now. It's just a great addition.
Speaking of defense, we're going to turn our attention to your defense in a second, but I'm going to nitpick here for a second. 14 penalties, 124 yards, something you have been talking about, but sooner or later you're going to have to clean that up.
Yeah, absolutely. We felt, out of and they had a bunch of penalties too, but we felt like probably 4 of the penalties were just, undisciplined, things that didn't need to happen type penalties. We've got to get those cleaned up. Our special teams has been getting penalized too much. So that's an area where we've got to get better and execute better. And we got to make some better decisions on the field with a couple of penalties that we took. We're not saying don't be physical, don't be aggressive. I mean, that is kind of who we are, but we got to clean up the penalties.
Defense, again, spectacular. Again, not to belabor the point, but you fall behind 10-0. The rest of the way, 3 quarters plus, you only give up 7 points. You haven't allowed a point in the fourth quarter all season long.
Well, I think that depth, there's a big part of it. We play 8 defensive linemen. We roll 3 linebackers. We play about 7 defensive backs. So, in the second half, we feel like we're conditioned to play better in the second half with all the depth that we have. You know, a lot of the teams we're playing are in no huddle, hurry up offense. So with us being able to play a lot of people on defense, it makes us even stronger in the second half.
Let's talk special teams, because I know the kicking game is something you want to continue to improve on. You've been talking about that. Dylan Sarka kicks 2 field goals, a 24-yarder, a 41-yarder, which was big at the time. He goes 4 for 4 in the extra point department. You never want to assume those are automatic. Big part of the game Saturday. I thought Dylan came up huge.
Well, like I said, the 41-yarder in the second half put us up 10, 2 scores. I felt like when he kicked that and we went up 2 scores, I felt like we were really in control. We needed to get another score to get, you know, to increase it to a 2-score lead. He gave us that. It wasn't an easy kick. It was 41 yards into the wind. They tried. I mean, they brought everybody on the block, and he put it through. And it was a big. I think after they scored the cut at the 7, with us kicking the field goal to go back up 10, we gained the momentum back.
Yeah. What about the health of the team as you head down the home stretch, 3 or 4 on the road to finish things up? I know Samir hasn't been 100%. Right. He sat out a little bit on Saturday, but the numbers speak for themselves. Is he coming along? And overall, do you have any concerns in that area?
Well, right now, Joe Peterson is about ready to come back. I'm not sure if it'll be this week. So we'll get him back. We already got Walt back. We've got Chris Woosner back. We're actually probably more healthy now, or have a better health situation than we've had all year. You know, we played most of the year without Woosner and Walt. We've had some running backs banged up. Dwayne Brown missed 2 games. Samir got hurt in the Cal game. So I think, you know, the crazy part about all this, after 7 games, I think we're probably getting healthier now than we have been all year.
Well, that's certainly a good sign. And 7-0 for the first time in 16 years at IUP, and with all of the success, it's even a little bit surprising to see that. But you hit the road at Clarion. Easy to look at their record, 1-6. I'm sure you are not looking past them. They went down to Cal, gave them a heck of a tussle. They fell behind 21-0, and the next thing you know, they're a 2-point conversion pass away from tying the game with about 30 seconds left. They outgained them, and I know sometimes cliches are overused, but sometimes they're overused because they're true.
Sure.
So, trap game?
Well, I wouldn't call it a trap game. You know, we don't really believe in that, but I will say this: they will play hard. When you get to 7-0, you do have a bullseye on your back. We're always going to get people in the PSAC. We're always going to get their best shot. Whatever we see on film, they're going to play better than what they show on film. Clarion's a tough place to play. Anywhere on the road is. So, you know, we're going to have to play well and do what we do, you know, not take anything for granted, and just worry about that first quarter at Clarion.
As we get ready to wrap up the coaches show, anything, Paul, what areas would you still like to see improvement? I'm sure all phases of the game, but anything that you and your coaches have been talking about that you need to take another step?
Well, we feel like in the kicking game, we have not really done a good job in our punt return and kick return game. We haven't gotten a lot out of that. In the past, we've been really strong in both of those areas to help implement our offense. We haven't really been very, you know, explosive in either one of those areas. We think we need to make some strides there. We struggled on kickoff return on Saturday. We let a ball bounce on a punt return. It actually bounced 30 yards down to our 2-yard line before Samir had the run. Our kickoff coverage was great Saturday. You know, Johnson's a dangerous kickoff return guy, and I believe he only averaged 14 yards. He had 6 returns, and he only averaged 14 yards a return. So that was a huge part of field position for our defense. And, you know, but we did not create a lot of good field position for our offense in the kicking game because we had 6 drives over 80 yards. You know, I've been doing this a long time and been at places where you score a lot of points. I really don't know if I've been a part of 6 drives over 80 yards on offense. So we did a great job with the ball control. We had the ball for 35 minutes. Being an old defensive guy, the one thing I do understand is you can play pretty good defense standing on the sideline.
Coach, congratulations on the victory at Slippery Rock, 7-0 start. Good luck Saturday at Clarion.
Thank you.
That's head coach Paul Tortorella. That's the coaches show for this week. Jack Benedict will return next week, hopefully talking about a similar happy outcome from Clarion. For IUP TV with the coach, I'm Mark Bertig. You've been watching the head coach Paul Tortorella show on IUP TV. Have a great week, everybody.